from the bombing and massive destruction being carried out by NATO, the brutality of Gaddafi, and that some days they were able to link arms from Egypt to Tunisia, the victorious masses of their neighbors. Now, I want to talk, I'm running a bit out of time, so I want to talk about Afghanistan and Pakistan just to say, and Iraq, to say the U.S. is not doing well. They've been unable to consolidate a regime in Iraq that can unify the various components of the population. Oil workers are on strike. The Saudis are threatening non-cooperation. Iraqis are camped at military bases protesting the occupation. In Afghanistan, protests are beginning against the victims of the brutal night raids, children, innocent civilians killed by U.S. Special Forces, and those protests are being fired upon, inflaming a stronger and stronger movement against the occupation. In Pakistan, the workers' movement is beginning, is responding to the continued drone attacks and disruption of the forces. So it's very clear that the U.S. is not in good shape. However, they're clearly not yet defeated. And we know that despite these difficulties, as Khaled said, they're not going to give up. They'll simply adopt a greater degree of violence, recklessness, and horror. So if there's to be a political space for the further development of the Egyptian Revolution and the rest of the Arab Spring, it's up to us to do as much as we can in our power to tie Washington's hands in Libya, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Palestine, and beyond. Fortunately, while the anti-war movement remains at a relatively low place in terms of mobilization, there are many new forces. There are new forces on the horizon. In the United States, the attacks, and I imagine here, I want to hear more about the situation here, the violence of U.S. attacks on Muslim Americans, the preemptive prosecution of hundreds of innocent men, the entrapment of many disadvantaged young Muslim men to fill specially privately run solitary confinement Muslim prisons called the communication management units are radicalizing a large Muslim American population. South Asian youth are stepping forward to defend Pakistan and immigrant communities that are suffering from the blows of Homeland Security. Civil liberties activists are now being mobilized in the U.S. Because the FBI and the powers that be are carrying out kind of exemplary attack on solidarity activists from Minnesota and Chicago, 23 of whom have been summoned before grand juries and anticipating indictments for, quote, material support to terrorists because they did solidarity work with the victims of Colombian state violence and Palestinian activists. And the whole movement needs to mobilize to defend our right to organize this movement. And of course, yesterday, it's quite interesting, these cases. I hope we can talk about it in the discussion. Yesterday, new FBI documents were revealed in the U.S. that demonstrated that the FBI was ordered to come to these union anti-war activist homes with an operation order that across the top said, dangerous, we expect their arms in these homes, and approached the door and busted down the doors and entered with machine guns. And of course, the main challenge for the anti-war movement in the U.S. of in defending ourselves and our Muslim American brothers and sisters is to find a way to connect with the embryonic fight back that's beginning against the state cutbacks which are being led by both the Democrats and the Republicans, shredding union contracts and fighting to get the most massive givebacks from the labor movement, destroy the labor movement in the United States, and we have to be there to demand the U.S. bring the war dollars home. I'm active with the United Socialist Action. Gives a lot of resources and leadership to the United National Anti-War Committee, a formation that's distinguished itself by including a demand for ending U.S. aid to Palestine, forefronting the defense of Muslim American civil liberties and the defense of our movement, and so forth. And we are going to be planning important calling for having local anti-war actions around the U.S. On October 15th. We hope to have solidarity and international actions as well, as we did here in April in Canada, Pakistan, Iraq, Afghanistan, and other parts of the world. And we know that we have much to learn from our Canadian collaborators who have pioneered Palestine work in the trade unionists, built labor caucuses that can lead discussions on the true nature of Canadian and U.S. collaboration in the effort to subdue the peoples of the Middle East. Thanks.
Okay, so before we come to questions, is there any announcements?
There's a raffle that we're doing, 2 lovely bottles, which Comrade would like to model for us. Thank you, Elizabeth. And I have the tickets for them. And the good news is you can buy tickets from me all weekend, but we're doing the draw Saturday night. It's 1 ticket for $2 or 3 tickets for $5. Now there's economic value from Marxist.
And you have 2 chances because there's 2 bottles.
Yeah, right.
What kind of value is it?
Okay.
Delicious.
Rum value.
Speculation.
Okay. All right, so we're going to open the floor to 3-minute interventions or questions. And then, okay, Judy?
Well, the struggle in Palestine, which was one of the first struggles in the Middle East, and also Palestine, the founding of Israel was used as a beachhead against the struggles of the Arabs, and so the struggle in Palestine heralded the struggles of the other countries.
You know, this is just a small example of the kind of work that we do to try to raise awareness to this issue. But we also do similar work in the NDP as well. So, you know, these educationals are just another aspect, but definitely, you know, action is very important. And Obama made an announcement today that he was basically calling for the borders, for a 2-state solution, and the borders be the 1967 borders. And I just want to know what, if this is part of the same, you know, $1 billion to Egypt to try and make people in the Middle East, you know, calm down a little bit. But of course, Israel has said, absolutely not, we're not going to do that. And I'm just wondering if you think that this is something the U.S. is actually going to be serious about, if they're just talking, you know, and they're actually not going to put any action behind that to force Israel to actually do something like that. And the other question is actually about the assassination of Osama bin Laden. What is the American, the popular perception as to what this means? Is the idea that this has marked the end of you know, the occupations in the Middle East? Is that the intention of the bourgeoisie to give that sort of idea to the, you know, most people in the United States, or is it just you know, is it just nothing more than just it was an opportunity to knock them off and, you know, and continue with the course?
Thank you. Otis? Is there others?
Today is the 86th birthday of Malcolm X, and I wanted to say that in 1955, when they held the Bandung Conference, Palestine was under occupation, and then they had, I think, the 50th anniversary of the Bandung Conference in 2005, and the then president of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, went to Indonesia, and he, you know, I guess surveyed the situation, and Palestine was still occupied, and it's 2011, Palestine is still occupied. President Obama, there was a thing called Black Music Month in the United States, which was started in 1979 when people like Max Roach and Dizzy Gillespie went to the White House, and they started Black Music Month. They really put pressure on Jimmy Carter. And Barack Hussein Obama changed it to African American Appreciation Month. He dropped and Black Music Month was supposed to be something that was Pan-African, because when the Black Music Association began, they started off with bringing Bob Marley and Stevie Wonder together. And Obama basically has liquidated that. My question is that the BDS campaign, we were part of the cultural boycott of South Africa. And what is the status of the cultural boycott worldwide in terms of Israel? Because I have talked to a lot of people about, the Israelis have teams that come to play basketball here in the with the Raptors and so on and so forth. There's not too much done about that. And what we did, when I say the movement did, was they had a list of people that had performed in South Africa. Has what steps are being taken to let people know about the cultural and sports boycott of Palestine? And is there anyone working on a list? The United Nations actually paid people to put together this list for the South African boycott. And that's basically my question.
Thank you, Brother Otis. I have 3 more speakers. Bob, can I see your hand up? No, okay. All right, I have Doug, and then you, brother, yes, and then Barry, and we'll come back to the panel.
Yeah.
Second round.
I just thought perhaps both, but Khaled spoke about it to some extent. I'm wondering, how do you, let's say, in the process of creating the changes you need to make to create a truly democratic state and independent set of states around the world, I guess, that can work together but each be independent and democratic. How do you stop what Khaled referred to, the divisions that they create with perhaps pools of capital, or they, whatever, okay? Divisions that are created, because in the history, just a little bit of it, right next to the states here in Canada, I've seen the splitting of labor movements and the sort of driving out of activists. Things like the old waffle movement with in the NDP. I've seen things where there have been suicides of people because people were labeled in certain ways, and just horrendous things going on that turned out to be very obvious afterwards. And so to see those things ahead of time, or to understand the types of things that are likely to be done, and how you can open that all up and make that transparency part of a process for good, and eliminate the kinds of problems that come from sometimes the paranoia that can be created, from my experience anyway, within movements.
Sonny?
My question is to Khaled about the occupation of Afghanistan. If our newly minted conservative government would continue a combat role there, various Canadian corporations want to get in and mine the untapped regions because of the mineral wealth there. My question to Christine is, in terms of the upcoming discourse on, I guess, Iraq and Pakistan, given some people are kind of pissed off that America went in and assassinated some guy who may or may not be Osama bin Laden, but just the fact that they didn't use regular due process. Maybe like a few years ago they found like a drugged up Saddam Hussein, like, you know, checked his mouth like a cow with a flashlight and put him on a show trial, and what that effect would have. Because I think in terms of the corporate discourse, like even in the Toronto area, we have a couple of slow brothers named Ford who think anything to the left of them are like socialists, right? And I know that some people that are taxed enough already